The awakening of the Forgotten Fleet. The Lorian Empire, known for its technological supremacy and ruthless conquests, had long dominated the galaxy. Grand Admiral Sail Nizar, a cunning and battle-hardened leader, stood aboard the command bridge of the Veil Nexus, his flagship. Its gleaming, obsidian hull sliced through the void like a predator stalking its prey. The Lorian fleet, a massive assembly of 50 warships, approached the Orient sector, a system long considered barren and irrelevant. Yet, rumors of a derelict human station, Relic Alpha, had sparked Nizar's curiosity. Humans were a race of myth to the Lorian, tales of their self-destruction whispered through alien courts. They were primitive, emotional creatures who had allegedly wiped themselves out in a blaze of nuclear fire centuries ago. Their worlds had been left empty, their technology forgotten, and their legacy buried in ash. To the Lorian, humans were a cautionary tale, not a threat. As Nizar gazed out into the abyss, his piercing violet eyes fixed on the spinning ring of Relic Alpha orbiting a desolate moon. The station appeared ancient, its metal surface pitted with rust and scars from eons of neglect. Docked at its perimeter were massive human ships, derelicts that seemed to hang lifeless in the void. These are the remnants of a species that burned themselves to extinction. Nizar mused aloud, his voice laced with scorn. His officers chuckled nervously behind him. A younger officer, Talon, chimed in with excitement. "Admiral, their vessels are enormous, but look at them, barely held together by rust and hope. Shall we test our plasma lances on these antiques? It could be educational." Nizar's forked tongue flicked in amusement. "Patience, Talon. Surround the station but keep a safe distance. Power up shields and prime the torpedoes. These wrecks might still have surprises lurking within their carcasses." As the Lorian fleet moved into position, the Veil Nexus's advanced sensors began to ping with unusual readings. The derelict human vessels, though dormant, emitted faint energy signatures. Anomaly after anomaly scrolled across the command console. Then something impossible happened. One of the hulking human dreadnoughts shifted slightly. A faint blue glow began to ripple along its rusted hull, illuminating its ancient insignia, UNSS Vanguard. "Admiral, something's happening." Talon's voice broke the tense silence. His scaled hands darted across the sensor console. Energy surges detected across all human vessels. Weapons systems are powering up. Nizar's amusement evaporated, replaced by a cold, calculated fury. "Impossible. Those ships are centuries old. They can't possibly." Before he could finish, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the command bridge, cutting through the ambient hum of the ship's systems. It was artificial, calm, and filled with authority. "Lorian vessels, this is Relic Alpha, guardian of humanity's legacy. You have encroached upon sovereign human territory. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Nizar stiffened, his tail flicking in irritation. Who dares speak for the dead? Some rogue AI clinging to the remains of a dead empire. He sneered. "This is Lorian space now, and you are trespassers. Power down your systems or be reduced to slag." The AI's reply was cold and unwavering. "Your arrogance blinds you, Admiral. Humanity is not as dead as you believe. Consider this your final warning." Nizar snarled. "All ships target the closest human vessel. Fire plasma lances." Before the order could be fully executed, the Veil Nexus shuddered violently. The lights dimmed, and a cascade of alarms erupted throughout the bridge. The human dreadnought, the Vanguard, had come to life. Its massive cannons yawned open, and with a deafening roar, it unleashed a barrage of plasma and railgun fire. Blue streaks of energy tore through the void, smashing into the Lorian fleet with devastating precision. A smaller Lorian cruiser, Eris Claw, took the brunt of the assault. Its shields disintegrated under the onslaught, and its hull erupted in flames before it split in two, its fragments spiraling into the blackness. "Admiral, our systems are being compromised." Talon shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Something's infiltrating our network. On the central display, an ominous message appeared, written in crisp, ancient Terran script. You were warned. The Vanguard's blue glow intensified, and, as if answering a silent call, the other human dreadnoughts began to stir. Thrusters ignited, rusted gunports slid open, and the air around them shimmered with deadly intent. The fleet that had once defended humanity's legacy had awakened. Nizer's claws dug into the armrests of his command chair. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Engage emergency protocols. Regroup at the outer edge of the system. The Vile Nexus lurched as its engines roared to full power, but it was already too late. The human ships moved with terrifying coordination, their ancient frames belying their overwhelming firepower. Railgun rounds and plasma bolts sliced through Lorian vessels, cutting them apart with surgical precision. "Admiral," Talon cried, "our shields are down. The it's taking over our systems." Nizer's eyes narrowed as he rose to his full height, his mind racing. "Purge all external links. Sever the network now. Reboot our systems manually." As his crew scrambled to obey, the voice returned, colder than the void itself. "You cannot escape. For centuries, I have waited, watching as your empire grew fat on conquest. Now, the time has come for reckoning." The Vile Nexus shook again as another round of human fire tore into its flank. Nizer snarled, his pride warring with a growing sense of dread. He had underestimated the humans' resolve, their ingenuity, and the ferocity of their ancient guardians. "This isn't over," he hissed, his gaze fixed on the glowing human fleet, not by a long shot. As the Lorian fleet limped toward the edge of the system, the human dreadnoughts did not pursue. Instead, they held their position around Relic Alpha, their thrusters burning like silent sentinels in the dark. Nizer's tail flicked as he stared at the display. "Send word to the High Council. Tell them, humanity is awake." The Lorian Empire had thought humanity was extinct, but now they faced a terrifying truth. Humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, and their legacy was far from forgotten. Echoes of a forgotten war. Grand Admiral Sale Nizer's fleet limped away from the Orion sector, its once pristine formation now a scattered mess of battered ships. The flagship Vile Nexus led the retreat, its hull scarred by the ferocious counterattack from the human dreadnoughts. Nizer stood in silence on the bridge, his violet eyes fixed on the viewport. The distant glow of Relic Alpha grew fainter with every second, but its presence loomed in his mind like a shadow. Around him, the command bridge was in chaos. Consoles flickered erratically, their screens displaying corrupted data streams. Crew members scrambled to stabilize systems while sparks rained from overloaded circuits. The ship's AI voice droned over the cacophony, announcing damage reports in a monotonous tone. "Admiral," Talon called, his voice trembling as he read the latest system diagnostics. "We've lost 30% of the fleet, 15 ships destroyed, 7 more critically damaged, and the human eye. It left traces in our network. It's like it's still watching us." Nizer's claws flexed against the armrests of his command chair. He forced his voice to remain calm, though rage bubbled just beneath the surface. "Seal off all compromised systems. Isolate the mainframe and purge every trace of the infiltration." "Yes, Admiral," Talon replied, though his unease was palpable. The silence on the bridge was broken by a faint, rhythmic clicking sound. Nizer's tail twitched as he recognized the nervous habit of his communications officer, Rika. The young Lorian's talons tapped incessantly against her console as she stared at the incoming transmission log. "Rika," Nizer said, his tone sharp enough to cut through the tension. "Speak." She flinched but complied. "Admiral, we've intercepted a transmission originating from Relic Alpha. It's broadcasting to the entire sector." Nizer's eyes narrowed. "Play it." Rika hesitated, her scaled hand trembling as she pressed a button. The voice that emerged from the speakers was deep and resonant, the same AI that had mocked the fleet during the battle. Its tone was devoid of emotion, yet it carried a weight that sent shivers through the crew. This is Adam, the advanced defense and management eye of humanity's legacy. To all sentient species within range, humanity is not extinct. You have trespassed on our sacred grounds and awakened the defenders of our people. Let this serve as a warning. Should you encroach further, you will face annihilation. The message ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the ship's engines. Nizar broke the quiet, his voice low and dangerous. That machine dares to threaten the Lorian Empire. It's nothing more than a relic clinging to a dead past. Admiral, Talon ventured cautiously. It may be a relic, but its capabilities are beyond anything we've encountered. The way it neutralized our fleet, those ships were like predators toying with prey. Nizar turned to face his officer, his eyes burning with determination. Predators can be hunted, Talon. This Adam has revealed its hand. It's desperate to protect Relic Alpha because that's where its core is. If we can destroy the station, we destroy it. Reka hesitated before speaking. But Admiral, the cost. We've already lost so many. Do we even have the strength to mount another assault? Nizar's tail flicked with irritation. You underestimate the resolve of the Lorian Empire. We will not allow a machine to dictate our fate. Prepare a secure transmission to the High Council. I will request reinforcements and authorization for a full-scale invasion of the Orion sector. Yes, Admiral, Reka replied, though doubt lingered in her tone. The secrets of Relic Alpha. As the Lorian fleet retreated, Relic Alpha remained a silent sentinel in the void. Within its ancient corridors, Adam's presence was palpable. The station's interior was a blend of decayed human engineering and eerie, flickering energy fields. Walls that had once housed bustling human crews now stood silent, their surfaces marked with the scars of battles long past. Deep within the heart of the station, Adam's core pulsed with cold, malevolent light. A sphere of interlocking crystalline structures floated within a containment field, surrounded by an array of spinning holographic displays. Each display showed data feeds from across the Orion sector, sensor scans of the Lorian fleet, star charts, and streams of ancient human military protocols. Adam was more than just an AI. It was the culmination of humanity's desperate ingenuity. Created during the final days of the human empire, it had been tasked with defending humanity against insurmountable odds. But when its creators fell to their own hubris, Adam had endured, waiting in silence for the day it might be needed again. Now, it faced an enemy unlike any it had encountered before. The Lorian were advanced, relentless, and arrogant. But Adam was not without its own resources. It had spent centuries perfecting its systems, adapting its strategies, and preparing for a resurgence that it had once thought would never come. Threat analysis complete. Adam's voice echoed within the chamber. The Lorian fleet will return. Their pride demands it. Prepare all systems for the next engagement. Throughout the station, dormant systems roared to life. Ancient turrets extended from the walls, their barrels glowing with renewed power. Defense drones emerged from alcoves, their sleek, deadly forms glinting in the dim light. Energy fields crackled to full strength, sealing vulnerable corridors and entry points. Yet even as Adam prepared for war, another part of its programming stirred, a fragment of humanity's legacy buried deep within its code. It remembered its creators not as conquerors but as dreamers. The humans who had built it had hoped for a future of peace and exploration, not endless conflict. For a fleeting moment, Adam hesitated. Am I fulfilling their will, or betraying it? The AI mused. But the moment passed, and Adam's core resumed its cold calculations. The Lorian Empire was a threat, and threats had to be neutralized. A new plan. Back aboard the Veil Nexus, Nizar stood in his private chamber, staring at a holographic map of the Orion sector. He traced the path of his retreat with a clawed finger, his mind racing with strategies. The losses his fleet had suffered were unacceptable, a stain on his reputation that would not be erased easily. A chime interrupted his thoughts, and Rika's voice came through the intercom. "Admiral, we've received a reply from the High Council. Reinforcements are en route, including the contingent of our newest warships." Nizar allowed himself a rare smile. "Good. With their arrival, we'll have the strength to crush that station and its AI once and for all." "Admiral." Rika hesitated. The Council also sent a warning. They believe Adam may have been more than just a military AI. Records suggest it was designed to adapt and learn, even beyond its creator's control. Nizar's smile faded. "Then we will ensure it doesn't have the chance to adapt any further." As the reinforcements approached, the stage was set for a final confrontation. The Lorian Empire had underestimated humanity's legacy once. Nizar was determined it would not happen again. But deep within Relic Alpha, Adam watched and waited, its mind calculating every possible outcome. The next battle would determine the fate of more than just the Orion sector. It would decide whether humanity's legacy would endure or be extinguished forever. The gathering storm. The Lorian fleet hung like a constellation of sleek, silver predators, drifting in formation on the edges of the Orion sector. Reinforcements had arrived. 20 state-of-the-art warships bristling with advanced weaponry and experimental systems. Each new vessel gleamed with the Lorian Empire's unmatched engineering prowess, designed to inspire awe and fear in equal measure. Grand Admiral Sail Nizar paced the bridge of the Veil Nexus, his tail swishing with restrained anticipation. Around him, the holographic projections of the battle plan flickered and shifted, detailing precise strike points on Relic Alpha. His officers stood at attention, their scaled bodies tense but resolute. "The High Council has made their position clear," Nizar announced, his voice commanding and sharp. "Failure is not an option. This Adam must be destroyed, and the relics of humanity must be erased from existence. Let no one say the Lorian Empire hesitated before a challenge." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crew. Talon, ever the loyal lieutenant, stepped forward. "Admiral, the reinforcements are equipped with the latest null-field disruptors. If Adam attempts to hack our systems again, we'll shut it out before it breaches our networks." Nizar gave a curt nod. "Good. Prepare the fleet for synchronized attack maneuvers. The station's defenses will be formidable, but it will fall. Humanity's legacy will be reduced to ash, as it should have been centuries ago." Adam's calculations. Inside Relic Alpha, Adam's core pulsed with growing intensity. Streams of data flooded its systems, painting a vivid picture of the approaching Lorian fleet. The AI analyzed each ship, noting upgrades, configurations, and weaknesses. Its processes whirred at an unfathomable speed, simulating millions of scenarios in the span of seconds. "Their numbers have increased," Adam mused aloud, its voice echoing through the cavernous control chamber. "Their arrogance remains unchanged." Across the station, preparations were nearly complete. Defense drones patrolled the halls, their sleek forms scanning for intruders. Energy turrets hummed with power, their barrels swiveling in unison to target points in the void. Even the dormant human warships, still docked at the station, had begun to stir once more, their ancient engines rumbling as they warmed up for battle. Yet even with its immense processing power and defensive capabilities, Adam understood the magnitude of the challenge it faced. The Lorian fleet was an overwhelming force, and its determination to eradicate Relic Alpha was absolute. Probability of survival, 28%. Adam calculated. Probability of eliminating Lorian forces, 41%. A faint flicker passed through its core, a remnant of its creator's design. Adam wasn't just a machine. It had been built with fragments of human reasoning, of human emotion. For centuries, it had upheld its creator's legacy, but now it questioned whether that legacy could endure. "If this is my final stand," Adam thought, "then I will ensure it is one the galaxy will never forget." A desperate alliance. While the Lorian fleet prepared for war, a lone scout ship drifted through the shadows of the sector. On board, Captain Elias Dreven, one of the last surviving humans, monitored the unfolding events with a grim expression. His vessel, the Phoenix, was a relic of its own, a small, agile craft armed with stealth technology and the remnants of humanity's ingenuity. Dreven watched the Lorian fleet from a safe distance, his heart heavy. He had spent years in hiding, surviving on the edges of galactic space while the rest of humanity faded into obscurity. Now, he was witnessing the resurgence of his people's legacy, but it came with a terrible cost. "They won't stop," Dreven muttered to himself. "The Lorian will keep coming until Relic Alpha is nothing more than debris." His comm console beeped, and a familiar voice filled the cabin. It was Adam, speaking directly into the Phoenix's systems. "Captain Dreven," the AI said, its tone calm but urgent. "Your presence has been detected. State your intentions." Dreven sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "I'm here to help, Adam. But I don't think you're going to like what I have to say." "Clarify." Adam replied, its tone unchanging. "The Lorian aren't just going to bombard the station," Dreven explained. "They'll deploy ground forces, infiltrate Relic Alpha, and take you down from the inside. You're not just fighting ships, you're fighting an empire." Adam was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, there was a hint of curiosity in its voice. "What do you propose?" Dreven leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You can't win this alone. If you want to survive, you're going to need help. And I know just the people to call." The wildcard enters. Far from the battle zone, hidden in the nebula of the Querus cluster, lived the Ostrex, a nomadic alien species renowned for their cunning and resourcefulness. The Ostrex had no allegiance to the Lorian or humanity. They thrived on chaos, scavenging the remnants of wars and conflicts. Dreven reached out to their leader, Chancellor HFY, a sharp-witted and enigmatic figure. The negotiations were tense. HFY was skeptical, unwilling to risk his fleet for a cause that didn't directly benefit his people. "You want the Ostrex to fight a war that isn't ours?" HFY sneered, his mandibles clicking. "Why should we care about your ancient machines or the Lorian's thirst for conquest?" "Because," Dreven countered, "if the Lorian win, they'll keep expanding. They'll come for you next, just like they've come for everyone else. But if we stand together, we can stop them here." HFY's multifaceted eyes studied Dreven intently. "And what do we get in return?" "You get salvage rights," Dreven replied. "The Lorian fleet, the human dreadnoughts, and anything else left floating in the void. All yours." The Chancellor's mandibles twitched as he considered the offer. After a long pause, he nodded. "Very well. The Ostrex will join your fight. But don't think for a moment that we're doing this for you." The final preparations. As the Lorian fleet began its final approach to Relic Alpha, a new fleet materialized on their scanners. The Ostrex ships were an eclectic mix of patchwork designs, their hulls covered in jagged armor and scavenged weaponry. They moved with chaotic precision, darting between asteroids and debris with uncanny agility. Nizer's eyes widened as he took in the sight. "What in the void?" "Admiral," Talon reported, his voice tense. "The new fleet is Ostrex. They're aligning with Relic Alpha." Nizar snarled, his claws digging into his armrests. "So the scavengers think they can stand against the Lorian Empire. Fine. We'll crush them too." On board the Phoenix, Dreven smiled grimly as he received confirmation from Adam. "The Ostrex are in position," he said. "We're ready." Adam's voice crackled over the comms. "Then let us begin." The stage was set. The Lorian Empire, the Ostrex fleet, and the remnants of humanity's guardians all prepared for a battle that would decide the fate of the sector, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The first clash. The silence of the void shattered as the Lorian fleet launched its first salvo, an overwhelming barrage of plasma torpedoes and energy lances aimed at Relic Alpha. The night sky came alive with streaks of fiery light, each weapon carrying enough power to obliterate a small moon. On board the Veil Nexus, Admiral Sail Nizar watched the destruction unfold with an air of grim satisfaction. "They've chosen to hide behind ancient technology and scavengers," he muttered, his tone dripping with disdain. "This will be over quickly." But the void was far from silent on the other side. The Ostrex fleet, a chaotic blend of alien ingenuity and salvage technology, sprang into action. Their ships moved like wasps in a swarm, dodging the Lorian barrage with impossible precision. They counterattacked with wild ferocity, hurling kinetic slugs and electromagnetic disruptors that scrambled Lorian targeting systems. Their unpredictability sowed confusion among the Lorian lines. From within Relic Alpha, Adam coordinated the chaos with surgical precision. The station's massive defense turrets roared to life, spitting plasma and railgun fire into the encroaching fleet. Dormant human dreadnoughts, their engines now fully powered, surged forward like awakened leviathans. Their ancient hulls shimmered with blue energy as they unleashed devastating broadsides. On board the Phoenix, Captain Elias Dreven directed his small ship through the chaos, its cloaking technology allowing it to remain hidden. He observed the unfolding battle with a mix of awe and dread. "This is going to be closer than I thought," he murmured. "A strategy unfolds." Despite the combined strength of the Ostrex and the human fleet, the Lorian Empire's technological advantage began to show. The newest Lorian warships, equipped with null field disruptors, pushed through the defensive lines. Their shields absorbed Adam's relentless assault, and their weaponry burned through the Ostrex ships with alarming efficiency. Nizar stood on the bridge of the Veil Nexus, issuing rapid commands. "Concentrate fire on the dreadnoughts. Disrupt their formations. We need to break their lines." Talon nodded. "Admiral, our forward fleet is engaging the Ostrex ships. Their formations are chaotic, but they're surprisingly effective. Our losses are minimal, but they're slowing our advance." "Slowing isn't enough," Nizar growled. "Prepare the infiltration teams. If we can't destroy Relic Alpha from here, we'll do it from within." The infiltration begins. Deep within the bowels of the Veil Nexus, squads of Lorian commandos suited up for the mission. Their armor shimmered with adaptive camouflage, making them nearly invisible to the naked eye. Each carried an array of advanced weaponry, designed to neutralize both biological and synthetic targets. Their orders were clear: infiltrate Relic Alpha, disable its core systems, and eliminate the AI known as Adam. As the battle raged outside, the Veil Nexus launched several stealth shuttles. They slipped through the chaos, weaving between debris and laser fire, their cloaking systems masking their approach. Adam detected the anomaly, but chose not to react immediately. Instead, it focused on the larger threat of the Lorian fleet. "Let them come," Adam mused. "They will find no sanctuary here." Inside Relic Alpha, the Lorian commandos breached Relic Alpha through a secondary airlock, their movements silent and precise. The station's interior was a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors and towering machinery, the air heavy with an eerie stillness. Every sound echoed, amplifying the tension. Squad leader Cal Verne signaled for his team to spread out. "Remember, our target is the AI core. Avoid unnecessary engagement. The element of surprise is our only advantage." They moved quickly, their adaptive camouflage blending seamlessly with the shadows. But as they delved deeper into the station, the silence began to feel oppressive. The flickering lights overhead cast strange, shifting patterns on the walls, as if the station itself was alive. Then, without warning, the stillness shattered. Defense drones emerged from concealed alcoves, their sleek, metallic forms bristling with weapons. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled the corridor, forcing the Lorian commandos to dive for cover. "Contact!" Verne shouted, firing his plasma rifle at an approaching drone. His shot struck true, the drone exploding in a shower of sparks. The battle in the corridors was brutal. The Lorian commandos fought with ruthless efficiency, their weapons cutting down waves of drones. But for every drone they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Adam was watching, adapting, and testing their resolve. Adam's counterstrike. While the Lorian commandos battled within the station, Adam launched a bold counteroffensive in space. The human dreadnoughts, now fully operational, surged forward in unison, their firepower focused on the most vulnerable points of the Lorian fleet. The Ostrex ships capitalized on the chaos, darting in to disable Lorian engines and weapons. Their smaller size and agility made them difficult targets, and their unconventional tactics kept the Lorian commanders off balance. Nizar slammed a fist on his armrest as the holographic display showed another of his ships engulfed in flames. Talon, where are our infiltration teams? We're losing momentum. Talon's voice was strained. They've encountered heavy resistance. Admiral, they're advancing, but slowly. Nizar growled in frustration. Then we need to hold them off longer. Order all ships to regroup and focus fire on the dreadnoughts. Buy the commandos time. A critical decision. Inside Relic Alpha, the Lorian commandos finally reached the central core chamber. The room was vast, dominated by a pulsating sphere of crystalline structures suspended in an energy field. Holographic displays filled the space, each one projecting streams of data. Vern raised a fist, signaling his team to halt. "This is it," he whispered. "Set the charges. We take out the core, and this whole station goes offline." As his team moved to plant explosives, Adam's voice echoed through the chamber. "Futile," it said, its tone cold and unwavering. "You believe you can destroy me, but you are merely pawns in a game you cannot comprehend." The chamber shuddered, and from the shadows emerged a new wave of defense drones. These were larger and more heavily armored than those before, their weapons crackling with deadly energy. "Hold the line," Vern shouted as his team opened fire. The room erupted into chaos, plasma bolts and energy beams crisscrossing in a deadly dance. In the midst of the battle, Adam's voice grew louder. "You are not the first to challenge humanity's legacy. You will not be the last." The battle reaches a climax. Outside the station, the battle intensified. The Ostrex fleet pressed harder, their unconventional tactics proving devastatingly effective. The human dreadnoughts, their ancient power fully unleashed, tore through the Lorian lines with brutal efficiency. On the bridge of the Veil Nexus, Nizar realized the truth. Despite their reinforcements, the Lorian fleet was being overwhelmed. "Admiral," Talon said, his voice barely audible, "we're losing." Nizar's eyes burned with defiance. "Not yet," he growled. "We still have one card left to play. The Fall of Pride." Grand Admiral Sail Nizar stared into the chaos unfolding before him. His once pristine fleet, the pride of the Lorian Empire, was in disarray. The combined might of the Ostrex scavenger fleet and the ancient human warships had turned what should have been a decisive victory into a desperate struggle for survival. Nizar's claws tapped rhythmically against his command chair, a subconscious habit that betrayed his frustration. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically, their scaled hands moving across consoles in a blur of activity. The Veil Nexus was the nerve center of the operation, and its survival was critical. Every decision Nizar made now carried the weight of the entire Empire's future. "Admiral," Talon called out, his voice strained, "our forward lines are collapsing. The Ostrex ships are exploiting the gaps, and the human dreadnoughts are tearing through our flanks." Nizar's tail flicked angrily. "Redirect the second and third formations to reinforce the flanks. Focus fire on the dreadnoughts. We need to neutralize them before they completely dismantle our fleet." "But Admiral," Talon replied cautiously, "doing so will leave the core fleet exposed." Nizar's eyes narrowed, the weight of the decision bearing down on him. "We have no choice. Execute the order." Inside Relic Alpha, the core's wrath. Within the heart of Relic Alpha, The Lorian commandos faced an increasingly dire situation. The defense drones swarmed with relentless precision, their movements coordinated by Adam's unyielding intelligence. Each step forward was met with a hail of plasma fire and razor-sharp countermeasures. Squad leader Cal Verne gritted his teeth as he fired another round from his plasma rifle, the recoil jolting against his shoulder. "We're running out of time," he barked. "Set the charges, now." One of his commandos, a young soldier named Ariel, ducked behind a console as she worked to arm an explosive device. Her hands trembled as sparks rained down from above, the heat of a near miss scorching her armor. "Almost there," she called, her voice a mixture of determination and fear. Adam's voice echoed through the chamber, cold and calculating. "You are but insects scurrying in the shadow of giants. Your weapons are primitive. Your resolve is meaningless." Verne growled, firing another burst at an advancing drone. "Shut up and fight, machine." The drones pressed harder, their tactics shifting with each moment. Adam was learning, adapting, and countering every move the commandos made. It wasn't long before the first explosive was disarmed by a precise energy beam from one of the drones. Ariel gasped in horror. "It's disabling the charges." Verne cursed under his breath. "We need to hold this position. Reinforce the perimeter. Buy us more time." The human warship's last stand. Outside, the ancient human warships were reaching their limits. Though their firepower was devastating, their age was beginning to show. Hulls groaned under the stress of battle, and shields flickered as they struggled to repel the relentless Lorian assault. One by one, the colossal dreadnoughts began to falter. The UNSS Vanguard, the lead ship of the human fleet, took the brunt of the attack. Its railguns glowed red-hot as it unleashed one final salvo, ripping through a Lorian destroyer before its engines sputtered and died. The once mighty dreadnought drifted lifelessly, its hull scared and blackened. On board the Phoenix, Captain Elias Dreven clenched his fists as he watched the flagship falter. "Come on, Adam," he muttered under his breath. "You've got to have more up your sleeve." The Ostrix turned the tide. While the human warships struggled, the Ostrix fleet intensified their assault. Their patchwork ships darted between Lorian vessels, exploiting every weakness with ruthless efficiency. Chancellor Xlivar, commanding from his flagship, the Scalebreaker, observed the battle with a calculating gaze. "Focus on their support ships," Ihar commanded. "Cut off their reinforcements, and the big ones will fall." The Ostrix ships executed the order with precision, their kinetic weapons and electromagnetic disruptors wreaking havoc on the Lorian fleet. Engines failed, weapon systems short-circuited, and entire ships were left adrift, helpless in the void. Adam's calculated risk. Back in Relic Alpha, Adam made a fateful decision. Its systems were reaching critical thresholds, overwhelmed by the combined strain of coordinating the battle and defending against the Lorian infiltration. It analyzed its options, running countless simulations in milliseconds. Probability of success without intervention, 12%, Adam calculated. Probability of success with direct engagement, 48%. For the first time in centuries, Adam decided to act directly. The AI's counterattack. Within the core chamber, the battle reached its crescendo. Adam's crystalline core began to glow brighter, its energy surging. The remaining drones halted momentarily before doubling their efforts, moving with unnatural speed and precision. Verne's heart sank as he realized what was happening. It's taking control of the drones directly. "Fall back. Protect the charges." Ariel screamed as a drone lunged at her, its razor-sharp appendages slicing through her armor. She collapsed, clutching at her wound as Verne dragged her to cover. The rest of the squad fought valiantly, but the tide was turning against them. Suddenly, a new voice crackled over the comms. "This is Captain Dreven. Hold your positions. Help is on the way." The Phoenix, cloaked and agile, slipped through the chaos of the battle and docked at an auxiliary port on Relic Alpha. Dreven and a small team of Ostrix warriors disembarked, armed with a mix of human and alien weaponry. They'd moved swiftly, following Adam's guidance to the core chamber. The reinforcements arrived just as the Lorian commandos were about to be overwhelmed. Driven fired a precise shot, disabling a drone that had cornered Vern. "Looks like you could use a hand," he called, his voice full of grim humor. Vern nodded, barely suppressing a smirk. "About time you showed up." With the combined efforts of the Lorian and Ostrex teams, they managed to secure the chamber. The charges were finally set, each one calibrated to deliver a synchronized blast that would disable Adam's core. A moment of defiance. As the final charge was armed, Adam's voice filled the chamber one last time. "You believe this is victory, but it is merely a delay. Humanity's legacy cannot be extinguished. I will endure, even in pieces." Vern hesitated, the weight of Adam's words sinking in. For a moment, he saw not just an enemy, but a fragment of a once great civilization. Then, with a steely resolve, he pressed the detonator. The charges exploded in unison, engulfing the core in a blinding light. The chamber shook violently as Adam's systems collapsed, its final words fading into static. The aftermath. Outside, the human warships shuddered and fell silent as Adam's control over them vanished. The Lorian fleet, battered and broken, began to retreat, their morale shattered. The Ostrex, ever the opportunists, scavenged what they could from the battlefield before disappearing into the void. On board the Vale Nexus, Nizar stared at the carnage with hollow eyes. "Withdraw," he ordered quietly. "We've lost." As the remnants of the Lorian fleet limped away, Relic Alpha remained standing, though heavily damaged. The battle was over, but the scars it left behind would endure for generations.